The report disclosed that $14.65 billion, representing 71.17% of total earnings in 2020, was remitted to the Federation account, while total financial flows from oil and gas sector to government in 10 years was $394.029 billion. The report also revealed that government can increase spending on infrastructure development if fuel subsidy is removed and crude oil theft checked. This is in addition to recovery of $3.17 billion owed the federal government by 51 companies through taxes, royalties, and concession rentals. NAITI has produced 13 cycles of oil and gas industry reports, 11 cycles of solid minerals, 3 cycles of fiscal allocation and statutory disbursement audit reports. The unveiling of the solid minerals report, NAITI says, will be done soon. Well, I have with me in the studio Faith Nwadishi. She is the convener and national coordinator of Publish What You Pay Nigeria and a board member on the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, that is EITA. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Well, I understand that you have a whole lot of other portfolios.
Exactly.
Can I just get to hear your latest portfolio from you?
Okay, the Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy, as well as the convener, the Women in Extractives.
Okay.
Yes.
How about the EITI?
I used to be on the board. I used to be on the board of the Nigerian EITI representing civil society, as well as on the board of the International EITI representing Anglophone Africa. Okay. I was on that board for 6 years at the international level.
Wow, you are Mrs. Transparency in the extractive industry, if you permit me to say that. Well, you had led the campaign. You founded the Publish What You Pay. And NAITI, just a few days ago, published its 2020 oil and gas audit report. And we hear 55 oil companies are owing a huge sum, 1.32 trillion naira. How did we get here?
I didn't found Publish What to Pay. Publish What to Pay was an international campaign that actually sought to the bet of the EITI. So in the extractive sector, we say that the Publish What to Pay is the mother of the EITI because it came about from the campaign of civil society to get governments to be transparent about the resources they are getting. And Nigeria was one of the very first countries that signed on to that initiative. Having signed on to that initiative, started publishing reports about government revenues from the extractive sector, which of course includes oil and gas and the solid minerals. For some years now, we've been having that report, and then we see in the 2020 report that the NAITI had just released that we're still having the recurrent issue of companies owing government. In the 2019 report, there were about 70-something countries,
77.
Companies, and now we now have that reduced to 50. A little over 50 companies. Yes. It shouldn't be. If we have our processes, if we have the people who are supposed to man these processes, we shouldn't be having all of these issues because it amounts to taxes. If people are doing business, they should pay taxes so that government can provide the amenities for citizens and also be able to meet the needs of these companies. So when you continuously have a situation whereby companies are waiting to be pushed, companies are waiting to be arrested or to be disgraced before they do their responsibility, it means that somebody along the chain is actually not carrying his or her duties properly. And when we look at...
Sorry to cut you. What do you think is responsible for this? I understand some of these companies are companies, most of them foreign, some indigenous. If you do business outside this climb, from the water you drink, there is tax to it.
Exactly.
From the little as small as sweets, there's tax to it. Then this is the mainstay of the economy. This is one revenue base. We keep having, let's say, budget deficits. These are avenues to get these resources. How can we get to do it and get it right?
We need to not just look at the companies that are not paying. There is a reason why the companies are not paying. Is it that we are not putting the pressure at the right places, or we are getting officers who are supposed to put that pressure, not taking that responsibility to put that pressure? You see, in other climes, when people fail in the payment of taxes, the tax people come after them immediately. They don't give you time to relax. And so because you know you don't want the tax people to come disgracing you, what you do is that you pay up on time. But what do we do here? People are not paying taxes. You are giving them extension. You are massaging their ego. There was a time we had in this country what we call the pioneer status of companies that are already making profits from the beginning, and you are telling them in 5 years don't pay tax. If I'm a company and I'm coming in and I want to make an investment, and you're already giving me tax incentives, what you're doing is that you're helping me build on a foundation of not being responsible to pay my taxes. Of course, they will paying, but there are some other taxes that they must pay. For instance, royalty and others that yes, and all of that. And even you know that there was a time in this country from the EITI native reports that we had, people were not even paying signature bonuses. Signature bonuses are the revenues that government gets at the point of you signing even the contract, and then people are not paying. The report also shows that, for instance, we thank God we now have the PIA. One of the gains that we have had, with the implementation of the EITI in Nigeria is the reform. But it took us 20 years to get from a bill, of course, to what we have now. Now, this report shows that in the past, it used to be huge discrepancies. Penalties for gas flares, for instance, a company is supposed to pay X amount of money for penalty, and then you go to reconciliation, the company is saying, I have paid $5,000, and government is saying, oh, I received $4,000. So it means that along the line there's a discrepancy. What is happening there? We're still having that, even though in this report it shows that the percentage difference is not more, but there's still a huge difference,
and it amounts to a lot of money.
Yes, it amounts to a lot of money, and it goes to show you that the government agencies that are responsible for this are either not speaking with themselves or they are not understanding the process that brings about that. That's the unique thing about the EITI procedure in Nigeria. The EITI report covers 3 aspects. In fact, I used to say that it covers the entire value chain of the extractive industry. The EITI itself as a program looks only at financials. How much are you getting? Where is it coming from? Let us have those reconciliations, because the idea is if you have more money, it should translate to the kind of development that you have in a country. And that was how the whole idea for the EITI started, so that it can transform the lives of the people, address the welfare issues of the people. But a situation whereby you have laws that you have put in place that is supposed to take care of processes, and then you also have laws that you have put in place to take care of the volumes. If you're going to say that crude is X naira, and for this period we received $10,000 from crude, it means that you would have sold a particular volume of crude to be able to get that. So the report also looks at the volume of crude they have sold, so that they can match it with how much and the process that it followed before you got to that. Now, why I'm really happy with this report is that we have come from the history of, you have the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, you have the Office of the Federal Inland Revenue, you have the Central Bank, and on one transaction,
plus the NNPC.
Just one transaction, you have different figures. On one transaction across these agencies on one transaction. So we had come from that. That was how Nigeria was before the EITI came in, and the EITI, the native report, began to bring out all of this, some of these issues. So you have that, and then you have laws that people just take for granted because there are no penalties. Nobody is pushing them. Nobody is asking for that to happen.
Apart from the leakages or the lapses or the gaps we've seen in remittances, when we talk about tax, there is also the issue of the right figures of crude being produced, exported, local consumptions, and all of that put together. With this report, can you talk to the figures? Are we bridging this gap?
We are not. In fact, I think we are not doing very well. Let me just give you a very practical example. We have 4 refineries in this country that, when they were built, on the nameplates, they were supposed to supply the domestic needs of the country. And so what you have a daily, you are supposed to give to those refineries 445,000 barrels of crude per day.
Okay.
To meet the domestic consumption of PMS, especially PMS. Now, when you go and refine crude, you get some other byproducts out of it, that the country, diesel and all of those, aviation fuel and all those kind of things that you can get. Now, this report is showing that in the year 2020, not a drop of crude was processed in the 4 refineries that you have. 0%.
That's wastage.
0%. Meanwhile, when these reports were done, initially, the report said these 4 refineries were producing about 20% of their nameplate. So right from time, they have not been able to meet the threshold of the reason why they were put in place, and they were at least making 20%. Now we have 0%. What it also means is that the crude that you're supposed to give to these 4 refineries to refine crude and give petrol to citizens, you are selling them out. NNPC is selling those out, and the report also now shows that you have sent out crude worth $10,000. But what do you get back? You get something less than $10,000. Remember, you have not also taken into consideration that when you refine crude, you have byproducts. The cost of the byproducts is not part of the money that you are receiving. So if I send out $10,000 worth of crude, I should get $10,000 worth of refined products, including other things. So it means that I should make a positive return on investment.
Well, before I let you go, we're talking about transparency. We're talking about opening up the extractive industry. There is the issue of the beneficial ownership disclosure. That, and what other way, in summary, do you think we can further open up the extractive industries to much more transparency for government to get what is due them and at the right time?
Yes, beneficial ownership is one of them. One quick gain you can get from beneficial ownership is that you're able to get people to pay the right taxes. Somebody might be the owner of an asset in oil and gas or solid minerals, and is covering that up, maybe with another name. You don't know where the person is supposed to pay certain taxes based on that asset that they have. They will come to declare something lower. So that is one way of getting that. But further to getting beneficial ownership and transparency, that is the issues around contract transparency. Let's take, for instance, we have direct sales, direct purchase contract, and that's the contract that we use in giving out crude for them to bring us refined products. I'm talking like this because right now, in the last 3 weeks, every Nigerian, including myself, we've been suffering because of scarcity and all of that. And we're supposed to have 4 refineries that would have been able to meet up that, but forever we have never had that. You understand? We have never had that.
So are you advocating for resuscitation of these refineries? We're waiting for them. We're waiting for private sector.
I think we should. We should be able to resuscitate our refineries. People are there, they're receiving salaries, and they're not working, they're not doing anything. What it means is that instead of us getting positive returns on investment, we are investing in a place that doesn't give us profit. So why do we have to do that? Unless we revive that. If a private citizen can build a refinery that will work and has been described as a refinery that will refine even the largest volumes of crude that we have in Africa, then why is that we have four refineries that cannot do that? There was a reason behind why these refineries were built in the first place. So the other issue is the issue of contract transparency. And I'm happy to say that the PIA addressed the issue of contract transparency. It's very simple. We have tensions around communities because community don't know who is responsible for what. Companies are saying, oh, you're putting too much on us. We're doing our bit, corporate social responsibility. But these things should also be done by your government. Yes. So when you have a proper contract transparency, you know where the liabilities are and the responsibilities, who should be doing what. And then you also know exactly what terms of contract, under what terms of contract this company is operating in this environment. So you take all of those into consideration, and it helps to give a bird eye view, something close to a bird eye view. It doesn't give you all of the picture. It gives you close to a bird eye view of what government is taking, what the company is making, and you know, all those kind of things. And because of the different contracts that we have the JVs, we have the PSCs, we have the SORIs, and now we have the indigenous companies also working in our environment. And so these things are things that we need to put together. For instance, when you talk about employment, this native report has also talked about employment, and that's why I want to agree with the First Lady when she says that women have to be there. But the report is showing us that women are not at the top level management when it comes to the extractive sector. Now, in this report, we have about 18% of women, over 18,000 or so workers were employed, but only 300 of them were women at top level.
Whoa.
Only 300 at top level. But when you go to middle level,
there is a whole lot to talk about,
exactly,
about the details of the report,
yes,
and issues around the report. I think we'll get to do this some other time for want of time. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much
for sharing your thoughts with us at this particular point in time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Moving on, oil prices firmed on Wednesday over fears of a potential supply shock as the United States banned Russian oil imports, and amid signs that some buyers are already shunning them.
What is good for us in OPEC is good for the United States. And we have a vested interest in the continued health, growth, development, and prosperity of the United States. Because this is our biggest market. It's a country where most of our member countries, if not all, have had long-term relationships with, and we look forward to continuing working with the United States. We are in uncharted territory. We have to unite behind a common purpose. And that purpose is to ensure that energy is insulated from all these missiles that are being thrown from different parts.
This is the global market update.
Hello and welcome to the Global Market Review. Now, stock markets seem to be responding positively after U.S. President Joe Biden on Tuesday announced that the U.S. will ban imports of Russian oil. European markets were sharply higher on Wednesday as investors continued to monitor the surging commodity prices and the ongoing war in Ukraine. DAX was 4.65% high, FTSE 1.98%, and CAC 40 rose 4.87% across 6,254.37. U.S. stock futures also posted strong gains early Wednesday, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average topping 1.5% at 480 points, S&P 500 1.73%, and Nasdaq Composite also rose 2.15% across 13,551.25. Now, shares in Asia Pacific were mixed as markets in mainland China and Hong Kong struggled to recover from losses seen earlier in the week. The Shanghai Composite dipped 1.13% across 3,256.39. Hang Seng Index dipped 0.67% at 20,627.71. And the Nikkei 225 also depreciated 0.3% across 24,717.58. Back home in Africa, markets struggle to pick up losses as investors are still monitoring the global economic outcome of Russia-Ukraine conflict. The South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40, Namibia's overall index, and Ghana's GSE Composite were able to record some gains. That's the Global Market Review. I am Boss Sede Abel.
And back home, equities markets closed positive in midweek trade as investors cancelled the losses recorded Tuesday to end Wednesday on a positive note. The NGX All Share Index advanced to 47,287.09 basis points as market capitalization inched up to 25.485 trillion naira. 36.305 million shares exchanged hands by investors in 5,248 deals, valued at 5,860 billion naira. Well, on that note, we end a Business Express. Business Express returns tomorrow at 9:30 a.m.
This week on Executive